And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this Friday, the 10th of September, and a very special day today as well, with a special day being it's Ganesh Chaturthi. So why do we celebrate Ganesh Chaturthi? Let's have a look.
In Mount Kailash, there lived Lord Shiva with his wife, Mata Parvati. One day, Mata Parvati scrubbed turmeric from her body, molded a boy by using her power. She made him alive. While she was going for bath, she instructed the boy to guard the house and not let anyone come inside. After some time, Lord Shiva returned back to his home, but he couldn't step inside. The boy who was guarding the house was stopping him. This made Lord Shiva very angry. He warned the child to let him inside. But the boy was very stubborn. By seeing all this, Lord Shiva sheared the boy's head with Trishul. By the time Mata Parvati arrived and started crying and asked Lord Shiva to bring his life back, also told that this boy is their own son. Learning all this thing by Lord Brahma, he told to bring back the head of the first creature he found away from its mother. Nandi brought back the head of an elephant calf. They joined the head of elephant and made the boy alive and named him Ganesha. People often call him Ganpati. Mata Parvati and Lord Shiva went very happy. They asked all the lords to shower blessings on their son. Also blessed him to be the master of intellect and wisdom. Every year on Ganesha's birthday, people celebrate and welcome Lord Ganesha's idol at their home by dancing, singing bhajan. After 10 days, they immerse the idol in water.
Who's ready to hatch some cool pets? Click here to make your...
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit about Ganesh Chaturthi and why it is celebrated. Well, right now let's move on with our show for today. We have the daily news, and then we have the Daily India Report coming from India with Ankita. But right now, what's happening in New South Wales and how are the business leaders responding to that?
One of the chief concerns for business is the practicality of dealing with vaccinated and non-vaccinated customers. Daniel Hunter is the Chief Executive of Business New South Wales. Mr Hunter, what does the business community think about the New South Wales plan?
I think it's been met with a lot of optimism and excitement here today. I mean, it's muted because we've had a tough 3 months here in New South Wales. A lot of livelihoods have been lost. However, having that roadmap and having that certainty is certainly some cause for optimism. Businesses are very keen to get trading again.
It seems like a lot of restrictions will come off at once. A lot of people might be asking themselves, is it wise? Is it safe?
I think the New South Wales government will take a very measured approach to this. We are hitting that 70% vaccination rate, and we have to remember that only a month after that approximately we will hit that 80% vaccination rate. The time period between what we expect is an 18 October reopening for these restrictions being lifted and that 80% vaccination rate is only 1 month by forecast. We're at 76% first jab now. we are confident that we'll get to 80-85% pretty quickly. So hopefully that dissipates and we can get on with life and go back to business and having that good community involvement.
Last night at 7:30 we heard from business people worried about refusing service to non-vaccinated people. Is that going to be workable?
I think it's going to be challenging. We would call on that individual accountability in this sense from a business point of view. I think it is on individuals to do the right thing. We have been told here in New South Wales for some time that vaccination isn't compulsory. However, if you want to go to do things and want those certain freedoms, then you will have to be vaccinated. I think there will be some technology that matches it with the Service New South Wales app, whereby you will check in and you'll be able to show your vaccination status along with that check-in on the same screen on your mobile phone. Should be very simple and straightforward for businesses, to check and not have any overheads, hopefully. And we'll be calling on people to do the right thing and avoid those ugly confrontations that we saw in the mask versus non-mask thing, for example, from a couple of months ago.
But I guess the issue, it's not going to be the workability of the check-in, check-out. It's the kind of thing people were saying to us last night, which is just when you say to somebody, a wedding planner, for example, oh, sorry, we can't get the service going till those non-vaccinated people get out of here, that's going to get sort of awkward and potentially heated.
I think this is a problem for the community at largely, in that there are a section of the community that don't want to get vaccinated. I think we've got to remember there's a section of the community as well that are unable to be vaccinated for medical reasons. There should be exemptions around that. Those awkward conversations, unfortunately, are going to be a fact of life for us for some time now, because I think in this interim period, until we get those really high vaccination rates of 80-90%, there are going to be freedoms that are only available for people that are vaccinated. I think what we've got to remember is that these lockdowns that have been imposed on people and imposed on businesses are not voluntary. People have had to lose their businesses and shut down their businesses. Now we're asking businesses to reopen on a voluntary basis and for people to come in if they're only vaccinated.
Daniel Hunter, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
One of the chief concerns
they were
for
up to
business
date
is the practicality
on,
of dealing with vaccinated.
Many times, but when they look at who are they dealing with, vaccinated or unvaccinated, so that is the question. And right now there are many employers who are challenged with that question, whether to send back employees who are not vaccinated in the interest of and safeguarding the others. Well, right now, with this COVID-19 and the vaccination, there's been a lot of politics played in this. Let's find out why and how.
I know it's been difficult, but we are looking forward to welcoming many people back home soon. We can get there this year. We're getting through it. We're almost there.
We will get to 70% double dose, and these freedoms will come into place the Monday after that occurs.
This provides the direction. It's the first roadmap in the country. New South Wales is leading the way.
All of a sudden, federal and New South Wales political leaders seem to have us hurtling towards freedom.
You're here! Yay!
There is talk about vaccine passports to let us get out and about, home quarantine to speed things up, and even of opening the international borders by Christmas. It will all be most welcome glimmers of hope to millions of people in lockdown and businesses barely holding on. But all this talk of freedom rather jars with what is happening right now and is in prospect. It sounds like a bit of political desperation to shift attention beyond the coming dog days of this virus.
To 8 p.m. last night, we had 1,405 cases of community transmission in New South Wales.
A number of 324 cases in Victoria.
In the end, the speed at which states and the country open up will come down to vaccination rates. New South Wales is now well and truly leading the pack on first doses. But what has become contentious this week is the question of how that has come to be. 7:30 reported on Monday night that by last month, New South Wales was receiving 45% of the Pfizer vaccines allocated through the primary care network, that's predominantly GPs and pharmacists, compared to its 32% share of the national population. Some of that was thanks to extra vaccines like the delivery from Poland. But the extent to which other states' access to Pfizer was being affected by this had not been entirely clear to most people, including some state premiers.
I signed up to a national plan to vaccinate our nation, not a national plan to vaccinate Sydney.
Data released by Operation COVID Shield since our story went to air has further confirmed the proportion of Pfizer that went to New South Wales in August through the primary care network, and how little went to some other states, particularly Victoria and Western Australia. Why is this important? Well, there's a question of equity, the promise that was made that vaccines would be shared on a per capita basis. More significantly, the acceleration of Pfizer has very real-world implications for how fast different jurisdictions reach vaccination targets, because the gap between vaccine doses is so much shorter for Pfizer.
Premier Berejiklian's in a sprint, while the rest of us are supposed to do some sort of egg and spoon thing.
It's important to note that we will hit, in all likelihood, 70% double dose ahead of other states.
It's been a terrible political week for the Morrison government on vaccines. First, questions of how vaccines were distributed. Then yesterday, the return of all the questions about why Australia seemed to be so late getting Pfizer in the first place. Documents released under Freedom of Information laws revealed the global pharmaceutical giant Pfizer approached the government in late June last year. Pfizer Australia emailed the Department of Health on June 30, offering a meeting with the drug company's top executives on its COVID-19 vaccine. Quote, particularly if the minister and or departmental leadership, unquote, could attend on the Australian side. As the vaccine development landscape is moving swiftly, including through engagements with other nations, I am requesting this meeting occur at the earliest opportunity, Pfizer's representative wrote, attaching a letter that said the company had the potential to supply millions of vaccine doses by the end of 2020. But the documents also reveal what appears to have been an extraordinarily lethargic response from the government, which assigned a bureaucrat rather than the minister to deal with the company. This had been reported in early June this year by the ABC's Norman Swan. The government at the time categorically denied it.
You had a junior burger going along negotiating with Pfizer.
That claim by Mr Albanese is false, and Pfizer has already rejected it.
The documents also reveal the government quibbling over the signing of a non-disclosure agreement, even amid Pfizer's pointed warnings that other countries were securing deals and that the UK and the US had already signed up. Then came 730's revelations in July that senior Australian business figures based in the United States and alarmed at the slow vaccine rollout had asked former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd to intervene with Pfizer to see whether it was possible to get earlier access to larger supplies of vaccine as the Delta variant took off. The business figures had been told by contacts within Pfizer that the government had displayed a rude, dismissive and penny-pinching approach, according to one source. The government dismissed these revelations too, suggesting Mr Rudd had leaked the story for his own glory.
I had a little chuckle when I saw the story.
The Prime Minister and Health Minister Greg Hunt were reluctant at the time to answer the question posed by the story, which was whether they had personally intervened with the global executives. The government didn't secure a deal with the company until November, 4 months later. The latest disclosure has put the government on the back foot.
This is a company motivated. It says, let's move discussions quickly and we can deploy vaccines at unprecedented speed. Pfizer wanted a timeline for vaccine rollout and they got nothing back.
No, with great respect, what we were able to do, we did actually meet with senior international officials on July the 10th.
Did you meet? Have you met them at this stage?
No, this was done by the head of the Vaccines Task Force.
Was Greg Hunt right not to take that meeting with the global executives of Pfizer?
Well, I'll let others make those judgments. Of course, there'll be critics in the middle of a crisis, and there'll be lots of hindsight heroes, and there'll be lots of others who said this could have been done or that could have been done.
The revelations have been a rare gift to the opposition.
Pfizer indicated to the government that other countries were stepping forward. Other countries understood that it was a race to vaccinate their populations so as to avoid the lockdowns which half of Australia are enduring today.
So that's that case there. Well, right now as the Prime Minister said, that in hindsight everyone will become a hero, and people will always say this could have been done and that could have been done. Probably that could have been done. Well, who knows? But right now, people are getting annoyed at something else. Number of texts that come in from all the dodgy companies. The thing is that a lot are coming from like say DHL or TNT, the delivery companies. And the thing is, people are ordering a lot of stuff online these days. So they can by mistake click on those ones and get in trouble. So there is a no text party that's coming on board.
All across the country, everyday Australians have had enough.
What the is this? What the hell is this? What the is this?
That's right, they've just received a text message from Craig Kelly. Luckily, there's a politician willing to say no more. Hi, I'm Mark Humphries, and unlike Craig Kelly, I will never text you. I will never text you. Like far too many Australians, I know what it's like to be texted by Craig Kelly. No one should suffer the indignity of being texted by a politician, especially a weird one. Vote for me and I'll never text you. Will I accidentally butt dial you? Look, at this stage, I'm not ruling anything in or out. Except for text messages, I will never text you. There's only one party Australians can trust to never text them, and that's the No Texts Party. Even if I wanted to text every Australian, it would simply not be possible. I've got a Nokia 1200 and I'm running a very tight prepaid plan. Ooh, it's tight. And did I mention my JKL button is jammed? I've got no JKL. I will never be able to text you. I'll be just like the government's initial response to Pfizer. You won't hear a word from me. The No Text Party has two policies: no text messages and no text messages from Craig Kelly. Some folks ask me... Sorry, I just got a text here. Some folks ask me, Mark, under your leadership, will I still receive text messages from my friend also named Craig Kelly? No. Sorry, we just can't take that risk right now. We're running a Craig Kelly text elimination strategy. We will not learn to live with Craig Kelly text messages. We're going full Palaszczuk on this But don't take my word for it. Here's what other people are saying about the No Texts Party.
The No Texts Party? I've never heard of them. And I love that.
The No Text Party. Because how long until Craig starts sending nudes? Authorised by Mark Humphries, Canberra. Oh, hang on, I just got a text message. Oh, come on!
So there you are, no text message and a party there coming on with no text messages. Of course, there's a satire, but of course, people are getting tired of receiving lots of text messages, and especially from political parties, without naming anyone. Well, right now, of course, you know that on every Wednesday we have the real estate update here with Usha Chandra, and what we have looked at is the property boom. But on the other side of the property boom is, people need to secure a loan to get into the property market. And in securing that loan, many times people have to go through mortgage insurance. Mortgage insurance is normally when there is a very low deposit. The mortgage insurance actually safeguards the bank, not the borrowers. So here's the report.
After years of saving, this young family is moving into their own home.
We are very, very excited. We want to just jump and skip these 2 weeks and just move.
If you have read through the contract.
But their first mortgage came with an expensive financial product.
So if you see the contract here, we have to pay $24,000 in the LMI.
Lender's mortgage insurance is usually paid by people who don't have a 20% deposit. It doesn't protect them. Instead, the insurer pays out the bank if the borrower defaults on the loan and the property is sold for less than the mortgage.
They are trying to just pass on their risk to a third-party insurer.
The one-off payment is being added to their mortgage.
We would be paying interest on top of it because it's accumulated in the loan.
Nitin and Priya tried to save enough to avoid LMI, but house prices just kept rising.
That the same amount which was earlier 20%, that actually became 10% when the prices they increased.
The number of people taking out mortgages with LMI has risen from 218,000 in 2019 to 273,000 last year. As buyers continue to flood into the market, more than 150,000 borrowers got this sort of insurance in the first 6 months of this year alone. On average, 70% of them are first home buyers.
I want them to understand that they are paying for an insurance policy that doesn't cover them, it covers the bank.
One of the biggest suppliers of LMI is Genworth. It just posted a $60 million profit after seeing a 15% rise in policies being taken out. The other big player is QBE. And there's also some banks like ANZ that are now doing LMI in-house.
Banks are starting to cotton on to the fact that they can make money off these products. My issue with that is they're then incentivised to push you down the LMI route.
The finance sector says that LMI gets people into the property market sooner while giving confidence to lenders. But QBE, Genworth, the major banks and all of their lobby groups wouldn't do an interview to defend the product.
What happens in a down market? If prices were to start falling, that's when this whole thing could come unscrambled.
Analysts urge borrowers to learn about the dark side of LMI, which Helen and Joe Tolan discovered when they defaulted on their mortgage. Their cyclone-damaged investment property sold at a loss, so QBE paid out the lender and then came after them to recoup the cash.
We found out we had this lender's insurance and QBE wanted $84,000 or something within 48 hours off us.
They're still paying it back 10 years later, despite Helen being on disability support and Joe unemployed as her carer.
I'm paying $290 a fortnight.
And I pay $130 a fortnight.
QBE wouldn't comment on the case, but confirmed it still goes after people to recoup LMI losses in rare circumstances.
I do think this part of the industry is something that really is ripe for a thorough review.
Property prices are still rising, but there is a range of options for people who'd like to avoid paying for LMI. Certain banks are waiving it for people in stable professions, and there's a range of schemes where the federal government pays for it for first home buyers. Spots on those programs are limited and competitive, as Kelly Lehman discovered when she applied for a Commonwealth scheme for Indigenous first home buyers.
It was a long period of applying, a lot of paperwork.
After a year of waiting, she bought this home in Melbourne, but the loan did come with some conditions.
I can't get offset, I can't redraw, I can't consolidate any loans, but I skipped out on paying lender's mortgage insurance, which was helpful.
Getting into the market however you can.
Well, of course, getting into the market however you can. This is one of the topics which we discussed on Real Estate Update here with Usha Chandra. If you remember that, we titled that The Bank of Mum and Dad. One way to avoid the LMI or the mortgage insurance is to get the 20% deposit. And for that, you go and knock on the doors of your mum and dad or someone, you will avoid a lot of paperwork, and of course you'll save a lot down the track. The interest are compounded, calculated daily, so it adds on and adds on. So it is very vital to understand how that interest component of the loan works. So if you are able to get some financial assistance from someone, parents or others, whom, of course, you'll need to get into some sort of arrangement and to that be repaid or whatever. And that way you can save a lot of money. Well, right now, what's happening in the other market? Meaning the investments and stocks.
Emma Fisher, welcome to The Business.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, there's certainly a gloomy mood on the market. Investors shunning risk in a big way today.
Yes, no, certainly. All of this volatility that we're seeing is shaped around this multi-million-dollar question in markets, which is, what is the direction of interest rates? And that's really a question around inflation. We're seeing a lot of signs coming out of the most recent reporting season in Australia that indicates inflation is picking up, input costs are picking up. Globally, we're seeing supply chains really stretched trying to deal with this pickup in aggregate demand and a lot of supply restrictions. So that's feeding through to this debate. And the debate is really centered around, are these inflationary pressures transitory? As supply chains normalize post-COVID, they'll just go back to normal, or are they structural? And I think if they're structural, that has real implications for the price of every asset globally, because if interest rates are too low, then probably every asset globally is overpriced. I'm not so convinced that it necessarily is heading in a structural direction. I just keep coming back to the fact that globally we've got a lot of debt out there, and debt is a very deflationary force. But, every day we're sort of getting evidence that backs one camp over the other, and that's why you're seeing this volatility. It has thrown up both of those things. And when we think about risk, we think about it in two ways for the markets. So economic risk. There's valuation risk. So are the share prices too high? And then there's balance sheet risks, i.e. do the companies in the stock market have too much debt? Now, on the first risk, we think that valuations are very elevated right now across the board. That's a function of very low interest rates. So we're just saying that signal of risk is sort of flashing red. But on the other risk, balance sheet risk, actually corporates have very low levels of debt right now than they've had versus the last 3 decades. And households also similarly, they've seen their major asset, house prices rise quite considerably over the last 12 months, and they've also been saving. So the household debt situation also looks better. So when we look at the risks in the market, we've got one measure flashing red and one measure flashing green. So we think putting that together, you do want to proceed with caution, but I think you want to proceed in investing.
You mentioned those very strong balance sheets that corporate Australia has. Does that mean a lot of cash is coming investors' way in the form of dividends?
Absolutely. And I think, while it's unlikely that we're going to be able to repeat the last 12 months that we've had in terms of this incredible 30% return for the market. When I look forward, what makes us optimistic is the fact that, as you mentioned, we've got this wall of cash coming back to shareholders from corporates. That was very much a theme of this most recent August reporting season. You saw the banks announce large buybacks programs. You saw the major iron ore producers producing record dividends, and some other industrial businesses like Wesfarmers announcing capital returns to shareholders. So corporates have gotten the picture from shareholders. Don't hoard the cash. If you've got nothing else to do with it, give it back to us and we'll reinvest it. So we think the next 12 months looks pretty attractive from that capital return angle.
When it comes to uncertainty, you were speaking today saying that it throws up quite a lot of opportunity. How?
Well, so I think the opportunity that it throws up is because the market hates risk and uncertainty equally and punishes both, but they're not the same thing. So risk is the chance that you don't get your money back, and uncertainty is just not knowing what the future holds. And I think when you hear it defined that way, not to be too philosophical, but it's clearly a part of life. We never know what's around the corner. So the market making that mistake and punishing stocks for uncertainty, that can throw up opportunities. If the balance sheets of these companies are good and the management teams are good and through the cycle they make good returns on their capital, they can take a short-term hit from mounting economic uncertainty without it really changing the long-term valuation.
Emma Fisher, we appreciate your insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
And of course, looking at all that and looking at where things are going with the investments and things like that. So property again heads the top. It is still a better investment proposition. I might be biased here, but it is a tangible asset which you can touch, see and feel. And of course, it's not that volatile as we always know that stocks and bonds and shares could be. There's some little thing which happens globally and that could have an adverse effect on that investment. Now look, people have done really, really well out of that. Someone who knows and who is dedicated enough to copy. Well, right now it's time to take a very quick short commercial break and get a message from our sponsors before we go into the Daily India Report.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, Trusted and respected agency in its trade area, Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Asha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate is the world. Don't forget that every Wednesday we have the total real estate update with Usha Chandra right here on this channel. But right now it's time to go to our Daily India Report, and let's welcome Ankita.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you glimpses of the changing India and the growing engagement of the Indian diaspora with India. In our first story, top Indian and Russian national security officials meeting in Delhi have underlined deep concern over the presence of international terror groups in Afghanistan. The Taliban named its caretaker government in Afghanistan that includes 33 ministers, of which 17 figure on the UN sanctions list. India and Russia had a top-level dialogue in New Delhi on 8 September between the visiting Russian Secretary of the Security Council, Nikokia Patrushev, and Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. India and Russia expressed deep concern over the developments in the war-torn country. Sources reported that there was a convergence of views on all major issues and common threats, including on the need for the Taliban to adhere to promises, on the threat from Islamic radicalization and extremism, the presence of international terrorist groups in Afghanistan, and threat from terrorism spreading to Central Asia and India. The two sides also agreed on the threat posed by the flow of weapons to terrorist groups and the smuggling across Afghan borders, and higher chances now of Afghanistan becoming a hub of opium production and trafficking. The talks were held as a follow-up to the telephone conversation between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin on August 24th. This was the first detailed and extensive bilateral review of the Afghanistan situation involving the Ministry of External Affairs, the Ministry of Defense and security agencies with Russia after the fall of Kabul to the Taliban on August 15th. During the talks, India also highlighted the links of Pakistan's inter-services intelligence with terror groups in Afghanistan, such as the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed, which have been behind terror attacks in India. India also expressed concern over the security of minorities in Afghanistan, including Hindus and Sikhs. China has backed the Taliban's interim government in Afghanistan, saying it is a necessary step to restore order and end anarchy. China has backed the Taliban's interim government, saying it is a necessary step to restore order and end anarchy. China also announced $31 million aid to the war-torn country. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said Beijing will provide Afghanistan with $31 million worth of grains, winter supplies, vaccines and medicines as per the requirements. Wang said on 8 September China would work with countries in the region to help Afghanistan rebuild its economy and society, as well as fight terrorist groups and the illegal drug trade. Asked whether China would recognize the new administration, considering that Beijing has been calling for an open and inclusive government, Wang said the Chinese embassy in Afghanistan is operating normally, maintaining that Beijing already has its diplomatic presence in Kabul. Interestingly, a Taliban delegation headed by its senior leader Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar had visited China in July and held talks with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden said China will have issues dealing with the Taliban following the complete withdrawal of the US from Afghanistan. Biden said he expects neighboring countries like China, Pakistan, Russia and Iran to work out arrangements with the Taliban. An agreement between India and Portugal will now allow Indians to work in Portugal. The Cabinet of Union Ministers of the Indian government of Prime Minister Narendra Modi has approved an agreement between India and the government of Portugal on the recruitment of Indian citizens to work there. The present agreement would set an institutional mechanism for partnership and cooperation between India and Portugal on sending and accepting Indian workers. Under this agreement, a joint committee will be set up to follow the implementation of the same. Signing this agreement with Portugal will add a new destination for Indian migrant workers in an EU member nation, especially in the context of many Indian workers who have returned to India following the COVID-19 pandemic. It will provide new opportunities for skilled Indian workers and professionals. With the conclusion of this agreement, Portugal and India will have a formal arrangement for the recruitment of Indian workers. The cabinet said Indian workers would have enhanced job opportunities to work in Portugal. The government-to-government mechanism proposed in the agreement will ensure that the movement of workers happens smoothly with maximum support from both sides. Two boats with 90 or more passengers on board collided and at least one boat capsized in river Brahmaputra in the northeastern Indian state of Assam. At least one person died while two others went missing after a machine boat capsized in the Brahmaputra river following a collision with a ferry in India's Assam. The mishap took place at around 4 p.m. on 8 September when the boat named Ma Kamla collided with a ship named Tipkai in the mighty Brahmaputra. Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma said the capsized boat had 90 passengers. The Assam State Disaster Management Authority said 87 passengers were rescued. The National Disaster Response Force and the State Disaster Response Fund are still involved in search operations. President Ram Nath Kovind and Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed grief over the boat accident. Sources say that Army too has joined rescue operations on 9 September. Meanwhile, 3 officials of the Inland Water Transport Department have been placed under suspension for alleged negligence of duty, while senior ministers admitted that there were lapses and the guilty will be punished. India has announced its squad for the upcoming T20 Cricket World Cup to be played in the UAE. Spinner Ravichandran Ashwin makes a return to the team, while opener Shikhar Dhawan and leg spinner Yuzvendra Chahal are dropped. India has announced their 15-member squad for the 2021 ICC Men's T20 World Cup beginning on October 17th in the UAE and Oman. Off spinner R. Ashwin is making a return to the white ball squad after a layoff. The 34-year-old Ashwin last played a T20I in July 2017 against West Indies before being sidelined from the white ball squad following the Champions Trophy. Varun Chakravarti, who has impressed all in the IPL, has also been selected in the 15-member side. Ravindra Jadeja, Rahul Chahar and Akshar Patel will make up the spin department. Shikhar Dhawan, who recently captained the limited overs side in Sri Lanka, is a notable absentee. Selectors also chose to leave out Prithvi Shaw. Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul are the main openers, while skipper Virat Kohli is also an option at the top of the order. Meanwhile, there will be a time to rejoice for MSD fans as former Indian captain MS Dhoni will serve as a mentor for the team during the course of the tournament. India will open up their campaign in a Super 12 encounter against Pakistan in Dubai on 24th October. India is likely to be included in one of the world's top global bond indices that could attract $170 billion to $250 billion in bond inflows over the next decade. India is likely to be included in one of the world's top global bond indices early next year, which could attract $170 billion to $250 billion in bond inflows over the next decade. American multinational investment bank and financial services company Morgan Stanley said that JP Morgan's influential government bond index emerging markets and global aggregate indices are likely to include India before February 2022. However, World Government Bond Index will not include India in the next few years. Morgan Stanley feels the inclusion in the Global Bond Index could push the government to open its bond market further by removing foreign portfolio limits for all bonds in a bullish scenario. The Indian government has assured it will continue to keep inflation close to the target, which increases the real rates of investment-grade bonds. The rupee is expected to appreciate by 2% every year in real effective exchange rate terms. Reports said that since 2019, India has been working towards being included in global bond indices as rising government borrowing and a desire to push investment rates higher for opening up the domestic bond market to a broader investor base. With increased foreign inflows, Morgan Stanley expects the central government deficit to reduce to 2.5% of GDP and consolidated deficit to reach 5% of GDP by financial year 29 from 14.4% in financial year 21. Thalaivi, a biopic on Tamil superwoman J. Jayalalitha, played by Bollywood superstar Kangana Ranaut, is set to hit the silver screen on 10 September in multiple languages. Bollywood superstar Kangana Ranaut stars in Thalaivi, a biopic on the life of South India's movie and political queen J. Jayalalitha, late Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu state in India. The film will make a big splash with its release in theatres on 10 September. Kangana is very excited about the film. Screening for critics has drawn good reviews. Fans were mesmerized with Kangana's look as Jayalalitha in the trailer. Kangana thanked her fans for overwhelming response. Thalaivi stars another Tamil actor stalwart, Arvind Swamy, playing MGR, Jayalalitha's mentor in movies and politics. The film is directed by A.L. Vijay and produced by Shailesh R. Singh and Vishnu Vardhan Induri. It is all set to release in Tamil, Telugu and Hindi.
अभी तो सिर्फ पंख फैलाए हैं, उड़ान भरना भी बाकी.
That's all for this bulletin of Daily India Report. Thank you for watching.
And thank you very much, Ankita. Yes, excellent report, and thanks, Devika, for your comments there as well. Yes, it is wonderful to see that news coming in on a daily basis. Well, before we go to the events, just a plug for the show this afternoon. Of course, this afternoon we'll have Sumandua in the office here. We'll be discussing migration ka safar, everything to do with migration, and that's live at 4 p.m. right here. So we're now looking forward for your company at that time as well, when Sumandua will be here in the studios joining me for this month's migration ka safar. But that's at 4 p.m. today. I'd like to see you all with that one there as well. Well, right now, let's take a quick look at all the functions and events taking place for the weekend. And of course, as we begin with Ganesh Chaturthi, wishing everyone all the very best for that. And make sure you don't see the moon tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for in this segment. We'll see you all back at 4 p.m. with the Migration Ka Safar with Suman Dua. And with those functions and events that were there, I don't think that's a complete list. We will update that this afternoon. So tomorrow when we do the weekend edition, we'll have the full list of all the functions and events, because some would have taken place tonight and some tomorrow. Lots happening because Ganesh Chaturthi being tonight, lots of functions happening at all the temples and as well. Please do check out our website, which will have all the information. And if you are on the EDM list, you will get the EDM later today, informing you about all the functions and events happening in and around Brisbane. Until later today, it's goodbye from me. It's been wonderful having your company. And of course, please remain safe as we prepare to move into easing of restrictions. Fingers crossed.